Welcome everybody to another analysis of Tradomics, focus on the US indexes. Let's start as usual with the Nasdaq 100. So according to the last analysis that we issued roughly a month ago, we were saying that due to the fact that from this top we were having potentially the evidence to begin a T plus 3, if not more, we would have started retracing even harshly because we were also about to close a downward monthly cycle. So we have had this close of this T plus 2 at exactly 43 bars out of 44. And at the same time, we started a harsh retracement to begin a new T plus 3, which looks like not only a T plus 3, but also a T plus 5, because this swing has been broken, this one has been broken, this one has been broken. Therefore, here we have a lot of evidence that potentially we will not go back to the stop before 48 days at least. And this was already encountered as a possibility because we had 246 days from this T plus 5 yearly upward cycle, which is a median duration for a yearly cycle, which is between 190 and 338 days. Therefore, here we have a T plus 3, if not more. So I start already to update the chart by saying that this is a T plus 3, or let's say a T plus 5. And given that there was also the possibility to stretch even more, so to basically complete what a first T plus 3, then a second T plus 3, but then continue back to the T plus 5. Here I have to update the chart by saying that this is not a T plus 4, but it's a T plus 3 because the duration was 77 days. Okay. Now, either we really go back to the top before 48 bars, then here there will be a T plus 4. But given that we have this harsh retracement by also breaking a lot of swings, then here that there is a high possibility to incur into a T plus 5. But let's see the bounce back for this new cycle that is about to begin. And this new cycle is what? Well, we have completed the first T plus 2 of this second T plus 4, and then this second T plus 2. Now we have had, with the combination of the two monthly cycles, a total duration of 74 days. And now here we might have the beginning of another either T plus 2 or a T plus 3. Therefore, we have to monitor to what extent this bounce, the strength of the bounce will be. And given that now we have reached already a second level of retracement by Fibonacci, so we are in the second, let's say, layer. So one of the potential target will be 80,669 and then 90,048. So here we can start already uh, um, writing that this is a T plus 2, but it might be also a T plus 3. And let's be conservative, so let's consider a shorter cycle. But also remember that if we gauge the total duration also of this T plus 5, we have now 193 days, which is already a minimum duration to close a downward yearly cycle. So generally 193 days happens with not so high frequency because we are at the minimum duration as well as the maximum duration. So the median duration is the one where statistically we have the highest probability to end a cycle. And this also depends on the volumetric tendency. But without going into the technical details, you have to be aware that here we have the sufficient and necessary condition to close at T+5. Therefore, if now we have to start a new T+5, then the strength of the bounce will be definitely higher. And this is a potential target to begin a new T+5. But given that here we have the evidence that there might be another T+5, then we will need to stay below this top for 48 bars. Therefore, it's more probable that here we will see a bounce and a return back to a level that might be over the moving average 200 period, or we can also go below this this swing to close what? To close not just a T+5, but to close also a T+6, and we need a cycle, a negative cycle of 3 degrees less of a T+6. So therefore, here we might have a closing of a T+6 like this, and here we will have definitely 2 years cycle closed. So this is the situation. What is important to remind basically is that we might anchor into a bounce back to the upsides and then return it to its lows. The analysis was correct, and be careful that now we cannot go back to the top for 48 bars. This bounce back to the upside in the end will also be useful to close a T+2 upward cycle. So basically, given that now we are 21 bars out of 24, we can expect another 3 days of uptrend. Then once we will have 24 bars, so basically once we will have the shape completed, you will need to be careful for an eventual other impulse to the downside. And this will be completed by Tuesday, 13th of August. Okay, so that's what we can foresee at the moment. Let's be conservatives and let's focus on this bounce back to the upside to begin at least a T+2 and to close an upward monthly cycle T+2. Let's move to Standard. On Standard and Poor 500, we have basically the same situation as for the Nasdaq, because even here we have at the closing of the T+2 at 44 bars. Here we have already the evidence that a new T+3 or eventually a T+5 has begun. Here the retracement was not so harsh compared to the Nasdaq because we were not touching the moving average 200 periods. And here we have also with this downward cycle all the condition to begin at least a T+2, if not a T+3. So basically I update the chart as in the same way as for the Nasdaq. We will expect a new T+2 on the edge, so we will have at least 7-8 days of push back to the upside, and for the same reason we will have the closing of a T+2 upward cycle, which now has reached a duration of 17 days. So probably here we will have more pushback to the upside to complete this T+2 upward cycle. And this is it. So at the moment, let's wait a little bit more to call this T+3 as a T+5, because here we have had less less fall, so less strength to the downside compared to the Nasdaq. Okay, But given that they go also in parallel, the index, in the majority of the cases, um, we will see whether this will be a T plus 3 or a T plus 5. Total duration even here is 241 days. So let's move to the next one, to the Dow Jones. The analysis of the Dow Jones looks a little bit more complicated. It looks a little bit more complicated because from this top we have had the beginning of a T plus 5 yearly upward cycle that should have closed here at 317 bars. It couldn't have closed before because if we take, for example, this top was 153 bars, and if we take this one, it's 358 bars, and not even this one, which is at 398 bars. So therefore, what could happen here is that we might have a bear tongue of a T plus 3, because this is it's basically a duration of a T plus 3 of 81 bars encompassed between the first, um, encompassed after the first T plus 5 and then second T plus 5. Therefore, it gives a T plus 6. Now, it's a little bit too early to say whether this is the beginning of a new T plus 6. And in this case, we would need basically a pushback to the downside for not just 3 months, but definitely 4 months. So at the moment, I consider this as at the beginning of a new T plus 3. And the latest analysis was confirmed as we were basically concluding the second T plus 2 of this of this upward cycle that at the moment looks like a T plus 3 rather than a T plus 4, because here we have had 80 bars. So now here, let's update this chart with T plus 3, or eventually it might be also Bayer tongue. Let's monitor the retracement phase here and the downtrend. So last analysis correct, but here we have some more challenges to look at the situation so far. What we are expecting now is, also in this case, we have at the completion of T plus 2 at 44 bars. So then we are expecting a new T plus 2. And here we are expecting to complete an upward cycle that has now reached 16 bars. So here, as for the Standard & Poor's 500 versus the Nasdaq, we are a little bit um, um, lagging with the time, because the Nasdaq has 21 bars and here we have 15 bars, and on Standard and Poor's we have a couple of bars more. So therefore, we can expect also a stronger bounce back to the upside because we have more time to complete this hook. But also be careful that if the price goes lower this swing, then we will have further push back to the downside. Of course, if the price goes below the swing, we will have to calculate how many days the price has been up to this low. So therefore, if the price will stay higher to this low for a week, then we will have a T plus 2, and then we will have to calculate how many days we can fall down. Otherwise, we will have to see basically how many days we will stay over. In any case, let's not imagine the right side of the chart, but let's also focus on the strengths of this bounce. Um, so basically here we have at the first T plus U upward cycle, and now we are expecting the closing of the second T plus 2, and this closing has reached now 5 bars. So basically we can have another day at least, so tomorrow, to the upside, or we can have um, other uptrend until 11 bars, which is the maximum of a weekly upward cycle. So until Wednesday, 14th of August, okay? But let's stay alert. Then at the median duration, which is 8 days, so by Friday, 9th of August, we can expect the closing of the weekly cycle, but then after the weekly cycle, another weekly cycle can start. So therefore downtrend. Okay, so be careful by the end of the week, because once we reach an absolute top, we can have retracement. So Thursday and Friday, and eventually Monday and Tuesday of next week, you will have to watch out for a retracement, and then we will see to what extent this retracement for the beginning of a new T+1 or T upward cycle will end. Because if we go, as said, down back to the swing, then we will have to expect more downtrend. If not, then the downward cycle will proceed will proceed in this way for its development. Okay, so now let's move to the final one, Russell 2000. Of course, on the Russell 2000, we have had a similar move compared to the other indexes. So let's update the chart first. So here, this was not a T+2 because the duration of this upward cycle lasted 22 bars, which is not a T+2, but it's a T+1. But in general, the analysis was correct because we were expecting this T+2 to develop until 44 bars, and this T+2 actually, so this T+2 ended here, and this was a T+1. So we have had a first T+2, a second T+2, and a third T+1 with this T+3. We were also saying that we were expecting climb to the upside because this potentially is a T+5. So then we can have extension of the rally until 2025. Now, the forecast, of course, has not changed because here we had the beginning of a potentially a new T+3. As for the others, we have closed T+2 at this time at 32 bars rather than 44. So now there is a beginning of a new T plus. At the moment, it's just a T plus. It's just a weekly cycle because we have had just 3 days over this swing. But let's wait to let's give time to our indexes to see to what extent this this bounce to the upside will be, so in terms of days. And so basically on the Russell, we have to close the first weekly upward cycle, so like this. We have now a duration of 5 days, so basically tomorrow, and potentially we can have bounce as for the Dow Jones until a median duration of Friday, 9th of August, or a maximum duration of Wednesday, 14th of August. So also in this case, so let's be aware that once we will reach the absolute top, we can have a phase of retracements to start a new weekly upward cycle. So in this case will be a weekly upward cycle, not a T+1. So the retracement compared to the Dow Jones can be not so prominent or of a less intense compared to the Dow Jones because a shorter cycle, upward cycle, we start compared to the Dow Jones, and also compared to the Nasdaq, because on the Nasdaq we need a T plus 2 in 3 days to begin eventually as a minimum duration. On the Dow Jones we need a T plus 1, and here on the Russell we need just a weekly upward cycle. So the retracement phase will be less intense. And this is also explained by the fact that here we have at least a T plus 4 or a T plus 4 already binded to rally. So therefore, the expectation at the end is to go back to the stop and even beyond. Okay, so in terms of downward cycles here, we have reached a total duration of 192 days. So potentially here we might have also the beginning of a T plus 5, but this is something that needs to be confirmed. Needs to be confirmed by going back to the stop at $2,299. And of course, we will need also to have some at least 3 months be over this low to begin at T plus 5 eventually. But in any case, here the Russell is that we will go back to the tops. So I hope this analysis has given you a lot of information. If you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to our channel in order to be notified as soon as possible of our analysis, in order to be aware of what is going to happen. Time matters in investments, so therefore the sooner you get notified, the sooner you watch the video, the better you're aware on managing your position, or if you want to open long or short position or invest in the assets that we analyze on a regular basis. Thank you very much, and see you to the next episode.